I went through 100 productivity books and mapped out every core idea in each one, and this is what came out. 100 different authors, 70 plus years of research, and they almost all circle around the same 6 ideas. Different names, different anecdotes, but same core principles, which means either they're all just copying from each other or these 6 ideas are the real deal. Let's find out. So here's 100 books in 13 minutes. No filler, no fluff, just what actually works, according to basically everyone. Okay, so starting at the foundation. Principle number 1, clarity comes first. The first principle, and the most common one across the 100 books, with 44 of them mentioning it, is clarity. Knowing what you're actually trying to do before you start optimizing how to do it. And I want to explain why this has to come first. There's a mechanical reason, and Peter Drucker nailed it in one sentence. There's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. Efficiently doing what should not be done at all. That is a description of many people's work life. You're smashing through your to-do list. You're time blocking your calendar like a machine. And at the end of the year, you haven't moved because you were optimizing the wrong things efficiently. I know I've done this for years and still do it sometimes when I'm not careful. This is the trap. Productivity without clarity doesn't make you successful. It just makes you a very efficient loser. If you're running in the wrong direction, it doesn't matter how hard you go. Ray Dalio, who built the largest hedge fund on the planet, wrote his entire book Principles around this idea. His argument: most people make decisions reactively, case by case, based on how they feel in the moment. What he suggests: define your principles once, clearly, explicitly, write them down, and then every decision gets filtered through them. He says, if you can think clearly about what you want, you can usually find a way to get it. The problem is that most people don't take the time to think clearly about what they want. Angela Duckworth puts it nicely in Grit. Enthusiasm is common, endurance is rare. And that's the key insight. Without clarity, you simply won't endure long term. Big things take time. You need to endure. You need to lock in your direction so you go far enough to where you actually see results. Otherwise, you'll just jump from thing to thing with no continuity and never get anywhere. Covey calls this begin with the end in mind. Collins calls it the hedgehog concept. Dalio calls it principles. Duckworth calls it passion. Different names, same idea. Know what you're doing and why before you worry about how. Because every principle I'm about to show you after this one, focus, time management, systems, all of it, works in service of something. And if that something isn't defined, you just have a really well-organized life that isn't going anywhere. Principle number 2, do less, but do the right things. Now that you know where you're going, the next question is, what actually gets you there? And this is where our next principle comes in, with 27 out of 100 books. The Pareto principle shows up in so many books, it's almost a meme at this point. But there's a reason it keeps showing up. 80% of your results come from 20% of your work. Flip that around and it's terrifying. 80% of what you do every day barely matters. Gary Keller puts it as a question in The One Thing, and it's probably the single most useful question across all 100 books in my opinion. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else becomes either easier or unnecessary? Sit with that for a second. Not what are all the things I should do. What is the one thing? That's a fundamentally different way of thinking about your day. And that's the part nobody wants to hear, because doing less means saying no a lot to good things, to interesting things, the things that feel productive but aren't moving you forward as much as something else could. McOwen says the same thing in Essentialism, but frames it more aggressively. The pursuit of less is not about being more productive. It's about investing your time and energy in the things that matter most and being okay with missing out on everything else. And Oliver Burkeman in 4,000 Weeks puts it in very simple terms. The real measure of any time management technique is whether it helps you neglect the right things. The biggest threat to your productivity isn't laziness, it's the okay stuff, the good opportunities, the decent projects, the things that feel productive but aren't essential. Those are the things that quietly eat your life while you feel like you're making progress. All right, principle number 3. Protect your attention. So you're clear on where you're going. You've narrowed down what actually matters. Now the question becomes, can you actually sit down and do the work? And for most people, honestly, the answer is no, because they don't actually decide where their attention goes. It's being stolen from them, systematically, by design. Cal Newport opens deep work with this statement. The ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare at exactly the same time it is becoming increasingly valuable in our economy. Rare and valuable. That's a formula for a superpower. And he's right. The average knowledge worker gets around 2.5 hours of actual, focused, deep work per day. The rest? Email, Slack, meetings, notifications, context switching. Shallow work that feels like work but produces almost nothing of substance. And to be honest, I think 2.5 hours is even overstating it for most people. Now, you already know social media is destroying your attention span. That's not news, but here's what you might not know. Nicholas Carr pulls neuroscience research in The Shallows, showing this isn't just about wasted time. Heavy internet use physically restructures your brain. It rewires you for scanning instead of thinking. The damage isn't just the hours you lose scrolling. It's that you're training your brain to be incapable of deep focus even when you do eventually sit down to do the work. That's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not like you get distracted and then move on like nothing happened. The net effect is a long-term cognitive erosion. And who even knows where this leads with how much people are now offloading their thinking to AI. But there's also another side to this. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying what he calls flow, the state of complete absorption in a challenging task. And he found that flow isn't just when you do your best work, it's also when you're happiest. The best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. So protecting your attention isn't just a productivity tactic, it's how you access the best version of your experience. The books aren't just saying focus so you get more done. They're saying focus because that's where the meaning and the growth is. In a world where almost nobody can sit with one thing for 2 hours straight, that ability is a genuine superpower. All right, principle number 4. Manage your time and energy. Okay, you got clarity. You picked the right things. You're protecting your focus. Now, when do you do the work? And what state are you in when you show up to it? This is where the old books and the new books actually disagree a little. And the disagreement is interesting. The older productivity literature, your Coveys, your Druckers, is almost entirely about time. Schedule it, block it, protect it. And you're right. If you're not deliberately deciding how your hours get spent, someone or something else will do that for you. And you'll be just reacting to whatever shows up. But the newer wave of books looks at that and says, it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. Jim Lurr and Tony Schwartz started this conversation with the power of full engagement. Their argument, manage your energy, not your time. You can have a perfectly time-blocked calendar, every hour accounted for, but if you're exhausted, sleep-deprived, or emotionally drained, those hours are worthless. You'll sit at your desk during your deep work block and stare at the screen. Time was managed, but the energy wasn't. Matthew Walker takes one piece of this and builds an entire case for it in Why We Sleep. Sleep deprivation tanks your IQ, destroys memory consolidation, and guts your ability to make decisions. And the worst part, when you're sleep-deprived, you don't feel less capable. You just are less capable. Your self-assessment degrades with your performance. You can have the best system in the world, but if you're running it on 5 hours of sleep, you're operating with a handicap that nothing else can fix. Alex Pang pushes this even further in Rest. He studied the daily routines of some of history's most prolific creators, Darwin, Dickens, famous mathematicians, composers, and found a pattern that surprised him. Most creative geniuses worked only about 4 focused hours per day. Then they deliberately rested. 4 hours, not 12, not even 8. 4 hours of real work surrounded by walks, naps, and deliberate downtime. Rest isn't the reward for being productive, it's part of the productivity system. So here's where the books land. Time management is the baseline. Be intentional about where your hours go. But the upgrade is managing the machine that has to perform during those hours. Sleep, energy cycles, recovery. Match your work to your biology instead of fighting it. Okay, principle number 5. Systems over willpower. This is the second most common principle across all 100 books. 40 of them say some version of this. James Clear states it cleanly in Atomic Habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Goals are fantasies. Everybody has goals. The person who wants to lose 30 pounds and the person who actually loses 30 pounds, they have the exact same goal. The difference is the system. The daily, automatic, repeatable structure that runs whether you feel motivated or not. And the Heath brothers have what I think is the most useful framing for understanding why willpower fails. In Switch, they use a metaphor borrowed from psychologist Jonathan Haidt, the elephant and the rider as a model of the mind. The rational mind is the rider, and the emotional mind is the elephant. The rider thinks he's in control. He can plan and strategize, but the elephant is the one who ultimately acts. And when they disagree, the elephant wins. Willpower is a rider pulling on the reins, trying to force the elephant somewhere it doesn't want to go. It works for a while, but then the rider gets tired and the elephant goes wherever it wants. The solution? Stop fighting the elephant shape the path. Make the right direction the easiest direction. What looks like a people problem is often a situation problem. It's not that you're lazy or undisciplined. Your environment, your defaults, and your daily structure are just set up to make the wrong behavior easy and the right behavior hard. Flip that, and you barely need willpower at all. BJ Fogg takes this to the extreme in tiny habits. His argument, if you feel resistance to a behavior, you haven't made it small enough. You want to start flossing? Don't commit to all your teeth. Commit to one tooth. After you brush, every night. It sounds ridiculous, but Fogg's point isn't about dental hygiene. It's about the architecture of behavior. Once the behavior exists, once it runs automatically, you can scale it up. The hard part isn't doing more. The hard part is always starting. The central thesis, stop relying on motivation. Stop relying on willpower. They're batteries that run out. Build a system that runs on structure instead. If you need discipline to do the right thing every day, your system is broken. A good system makes the right thing the default thing. All right, and then principle number 6, start before you're ready. So at this point, you've got the clarity, the priorities, the focus, the energy, the systems. On paper, you're set. And yet, maybe you're still not doing what you should be doing. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. This is where so many people get stuck. Not at the planning stage, not at the strategy stage, just at getting started. And 25 plus books all diagnose the same issue. Steven Pressfield gives it a name in The War of Art. He calls it resistance, capital R. It arises from within us and is self-generated. You know exactly what you should be doing. You have the time, you have the energy, but something inside you just won't let you go. You reorganize instead, you do more research, you refine the plan one more time, but that force doesn't get weaker as you get more prepared. It actually gets stronger the closer you get to doing something that matters. The only way through it is to start anyway. And do the work, he makes it even simpler. Don't prepare, begin. Now here's the second half of this, the part that makes it actually doable. Because just start is fine as a mindset, but often the reason you can't start is that the thing you need to do feels massive. Building a business, writing a book, getting in shape. The gap between where you are and where you want to be looks so big that it's just too intimidating. This is where the compound effect comes in. Darren Hardy, Jeff Olson, James Clear, they all converge on the same idea. Hardy puts it simply, small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equals radical difference. The actions that change your life are usually so small that skipping them feels harmless on any given day. Read 10 pages or don't. Exercise for 20 minutes or don't. One day doesn't matter, but hundreds of days in a row, that's everything. And multiple books point to the same psychological reason this works, the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain creates tension around unfinished tasks. Once you start something, even the tiniest version of it, your brain treats it as an open loop and nags you to continue. Starting creates its own momentum. So whatever you've been putting off, the project, the conversation, the habit, start now. Start small. Start badly if you have to. Just start. The momentum will do the rest. All right, so that's 100 books, 6 principles: clarity, focus, attention, time and energy management, systems, and just start. Which one resonates most with you right now? Did I forget an important principle? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, we have a lot more coming in the future, so subscribe to not miss out on future uploads. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.